And we're live once again. Welcome back, everyone, to the Solvable Mysteries Podcast. My name is Juras, and as every week, I'm joined by my co-host, Glenn Highcove. Yo, man, how are you doing on this Friday evening?
Hey, doing okay, hanging in there. The weather's definitely changing. We're definitely getting into a different season here. So, yeah, looking forward to ending our week and beginning the next one with a cool chat.
Definitely, man. Okay, bro. What do you think about this case today that we're doing? I think it's definitely a case that we're going back to. You know, the first episode that we did on this case was, man, there was a whole bunch of information. So I will say this off the bat that we will be doing 2 episodes on this case sequentially. So basically, episode number 70 and 71 will be about the same case. So you are initially seeing the first episode of a very, very mysterious case. And actually, during my research right now, I think I found some more interesting details. I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing this case again, right?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because it's like our most, or I mean it is definitely our most commented case out of all the. I mean, gosh, we're up to episode 70 now, and well past 100 hours of content on our channel. And this case, like, I think I want to say every day we have at least one, if not more, um, comments on it. And I mean, everybody's got super strong opinions. Sometimes they agree with us. Sometimes the users don't agree with us. Sometimes they get mad at us. And I think this will be no exception. But I think this. I'm going to pretend for a second I'm one of those users. They might say, "Hey, you guys already did a whole episode on this. So, like, what are you going to talk about today? What are you guys going to talk about today that's different than what you talked about before on this topic, or why are we talking about it again so soon?"
Right. So to answer that question, well, first of all, the quality on that episode was bad for some reason. On the most popular episode in recent times, we had like the worst audio quality ever. So we already managed to fix those issues, technical issues that we had. So I think that is one of the reasons to like give out a better production on this really cool case. Also, the case has a cult followings and all of those comments, so we just had to come back to here and do another take on the whole thing. And then lastly, I think we found some interesting details. We took a little bit of a deeper dive into this case, and the result of that dive is actually, well, for me personally, I don't know if you will agree, but for me personally, I definitely started to shift my theories and opinions on this case. And I have this one theory in my head. I will definitely leave it for episode number 2 of this, I guess, sequential episodes of, I will just put it out right now, the Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon disappearance case. So I believe we did episode number 56 on it. So actually not that long ago. It happened fairly recently, and we already had so many interesting comments on there. I'm definitely excited to do this case, man. So yeah, in retrospect, yeah.
Just to jump in, I mean, it's same thing here. Where I know when we did it originally, I had one opinion, and I think I was leaning pretty heavily towards it being accidental and it being just mostly their own fault. Sad as that is to say, but after I think getting yelled at, and listen, like no one's going to change my mind by yelling at me, but I think when enough people make comments where they're like, "Hey, look at this, look at that," and we say, "Hey, we will look at it again." I mean, I really have to say a lot of what we're going to talk about today is pretty compelling.
Definitely.
Where it's like, yeah. But by the way, I sometimes people get mad when we interrupt each other. But hey, that's just the way it is, guys. We're two guys talking in like multiple time zones, and we're really excited about what we want to talk about. So if you're us and I interrupt each other a little bit because we're so excited to like tag team on the topic, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's just how internet works actually. Okay, bro.
Yeah.
Yo, let's get into it. So without any further ado, I'm gonna give a little intro into the whole case for our audience, and after I do that, I think we could move through the shared file that we have. So as I've said, guys, this episode right now that you're gonna listen to will be more about just the details, the really eerie details, the visual assets, things like that. And then the actual theories and comment reactions will be happening on episode number 71, so stay tuned for that as well. So let's jump into it. Lisanne Froon and Kris Kremers. So we are seeing right now a image. Lisanne Froon and Kris Kremers were basically two Dutch friends. Lisanne Froon was the girl on the left hand side of this picture, and Kris Kremers was the girl on the right hand picture. As you can see, Lisanne is quite a bit taller than Kris. Lisanne was I believe 6 foot tall, almost 6'1" actually, so she's actually taller than me. And then we have Kris Kremers on the left hand side, yeah, so the girl with the ginger hair. She was actually 5'8". They were friends from the Netherlands actually, and they pretty much wanted to take a vacation to Panama. Basically the premise for that vacation is so that they could learn Spanish, because obviously people in Panama speak Spanish. They also wanted to volunteer in a local school in a village called Boquet. More on the village a little bit later on in the show. They were actually denied for some reason, like the accommodations or something like that, like the school messed up, and they went on a trip, and the trip actually ended pretty badly. So I'm just gonna flip through the points I have on this case, and then I will let you chime in on that. So basically, we talked a lot about all of this stuff on episode number 56. So if you want like the super in-depth look into the story, how they got there, you could definitely go there. On March 15th, 2014, Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon boarded a plane. By the way, Kris Kremers was 21 years of age and Lisanne Froon was 22 years of age, so they were pretty young. They boarded a plane from Amsterdam to Costa Rica initially. From Costa Rica, they actually traveled to Bocas del Toro in Panama. They planned to sightsee and do volunteer work in the local children's school and learn Spanish as well. The girls first visited the coast of Panama and had a good time in Bocas del Toro. They met two young Dutchmen there. We don't really have any information on those two men. Maybe, we will have some more info about these guys in the next episode, who they spent a lot of time with, as well as several international young men. So a lot of people just taking a vacation. They later arrived 2 weeks later in Boquet. Appointments had changed, unfortunately. The staff of the children's school called Aura told them they could not work there that week as planned and they should check back next week. Lisanne did not take this setback well. She was actually really upset. The girls stayed with a local host family in Alto Boquet. So as we have discussed on episode number 56, Alto Boquet and Boquet are two different little towns, I think. So Alto Boquet is like this, it's supposed to be like alto would mean a higher altitude, but it's actually in lower altitude. I don't know how that works out. So they stayed with Miriam Guerrera. Miriam described the girls as smart and shy. In this local newspaper article, she also stated that the girls were restless. Miriam recalled that Lisanne, the girl on the right, was not feeling too well and also had a sore throat. She also apparently had asthma. The girls had planned all sorts of sightseeing tours for the next week. They were supposed to start on Wednesday, April 2nd and finish up on Saturday, and I assume that's when they were supposed to get back into the children's school to do volunteer work, but that never actually materialized, unfortunately. On Tuesday, April 1st, April Fool's 2014, they set out on a hike on the Pianista Trail. I have a little information that it's an 8-kilometer jungle trail in the town. So a taxi is said to have picked them up and brought them to the start of the trail. The taxi driver declared that he dropped them off in the afternoon, so basically 13:40 p.m., but the clock on their digital camera actually suggests that they started at around 11 a.m. in the morning on their hike, which is interesting. Like, there's gonna be a whole bunch of discrepancies in this case. Lisanne and Kris actually wore light clothing on the day. They had like shorts and tank tops. Basically, definitely they were dressed for a short hike, let's say a few hour hike, definitely not a few week long disappearance. They didn't bring much with them other than a light backpack, one passport, some money, their mobile phones, a separate digital camera, and one water bottle. Residents at the start of the trail warned the girls not to walk up there by themselves because the trail was apparently really dangerous. They also took a small dog named Blue, or Azul in Spanish, along, like the dog pretty much belonged to like a local restaurant and things like that. So this is their preparation for the trek. Before we jump to the disappearance, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can go into some cool details about the trail because apparently it's like a major tourist attraction, even though there's a little bit of like an unofficial nature to it. Is that okay if I just go into a quick?
Yeah, definitely.
Quick high point. So it's pretty awesome when you research this case for the tragedy that it is. You can, when you research it and you see what other people have said about this attraction, the where they were going, this trail, you can kind of see why they would want to do this as part of their trip, especially if kind of they were already on plan B for their kind of vacation or adventure, having not been able to do the teaching job that they originally came down there for. So the Pianista Trail is a famous path that brings walkers to a high mountain point that's about an 8-kilometer distance from Boquete, and one of the main attractions about it is this one blogger who has a bunch of awesome photos described it as a cloud forest trail. So apparently the combination of the climate, the humidity, and then the mountains and like the rapidly cooling weather and just the really, I guess, interesting nature of it. If you're not from that area, if you're not from Panama, so if you're from, I don't know, Netherlands or California or any other place that isn't like kind of a rainforest, it's especially scenic. It's like this thing where you're basically walking up into the clouds and you have like this very scenic atmospheric jungle around you, and it's both cool and then most of the time it's like cool weather. You're changing a lot of altitude. So here's the main stats on it are, if you're kind of an average person, it's about a 3 to 4 hour expected trip, and you're going to change elevation. You're going to change about 2,000 feet elevation on that trip. So you're going to go up 2,000 feet and then come back down 2,000 feet, and that for everyone who's outside of the US and UK, that's about 610 meters. That's pretty significant. I mean, that's the equivalent of climbing up like a small mountain. So it's not nothing. And it's depending on the weather, the visibility can get really limited, where this is where probably it became very wise to have guides, because there's some points where the trail kind of branches off. And if you're not there with a local guide, you might not know when to like go right or left when you need to go right or left, etc. So that's kind of the case here. So I guess to go on a little bit, it's interesting because that 2,000 feet change in altitude I mentioned, it actually happens specifically in like a 3-kilometer space. So that's pretty brief. That means essentially what that means to me, coming from kind of my Boy Scout hiking background, is like a lot of hiking all at once. Like that's probably like a lot of straightaways, and then all of a sudden you're doing a bunch of switchbacks back and forth to go up a hill. One of the descriptions they have from one of the bloggers is, here's a quote: "There's a small junction where you will need to make a decision whether to go left or right. The trail to the left goes uphill, and the train to the right goes downhill towards the stream, which you can hear. Head down the stream. Luckily for us, a local walked past at that very moment, and I asked him which way to go, and he pointed across the stream. He was the only person we saw all day on the trail." And then they have a photo of it, and it's almost counterintuitive that like to go up this trail, you would actually go down first. Like probably someone who's doing it, I could see it would be very easy to get a little bit disoriented with some of these instructions. I think it's also the important thing to note is that this trail actually has like kind of an end point that's recommended, but that doesn't mean the trail actually ends, if that makes sense. So at some point, when you're kind of walking around the top of this mountain, there's something called the Continental Divide. And the Continental Divide is this kind of weird border area between Costa Rica and Panama, where, essentially you're kind of going from one continent to the other. And, it's worth mentioning, just like anywhere else in the world, border areas tend to be a little bit more dangerous because sometimes there's either sometimes there's bandits, depending where you are, crossing back and forth. Sometimes it's like an area where there isn't as much authority present, or maybe it's not as populated, or where, I know this happens, where my wife's from in Belize. It's not unheard of for bandits to jump the border from Guatemala, do something in Belize, and then try to run back across the border to, Guatemala, and vice versa. In fact, an American a couple of years ago was killed right there on the river at the border. So, I think there's probably a couple different reasons, which we'll definitely cover in more detail next week. But there's a couple different reasons why the locals are like, hey, don't go up there alone. Bring a guide, do it the smart way, because it sounds like it might be a little bit easy to accidentally keep on going way farther. Now, like I mentioned, it's kind of a long trip. It's about 5.2 miles, by the imperial system, and 8.4 kilometers round trip. There was one person that said that they were able to do it like an hour each way, but they were in super shape. Now, one of the things to point out is there's a big altitude issue in this area, and apparently, Lisanne and Kris, both being from pretty flat, pretty low altitude Netherlands, weren't that acclimated. There's even a quote later on where one of the coworkers, one of the workers at the Bouquet Equestrian Center, mentioned to have seen the girls before April 1st, and he said that they were hot and sweating and red from walking, and things that from this person's point of view made it seem like they were not acclimatized to the altitude, no matter what kind of shape they were in. I mean, they look like they're in good shape. They seem very confident in their hiking. I don't know why they only brought one bottle of water, especially as we get into the photos. You'll see why that bothers me. But I'll just add this on. I know I said this last time, but I really want to make the point again because I've run into it through my whole life. The first time I ever had to hike at a high altitude, so 10K feet, which I don't know what that is in meters, maybe 3,000 meters or so. That was like a major shock to me. So I was probably almost the best shape of my life as a teenager. Literally the summer before that, I had I had beaten an entire summer camp full of kids at swimming, swimming basically half a mile one direction and back. So I was in pretty good shape, and guess what? When you're not altitude changes all of that. So for some reason, I never do well with altitude. And I remember I was just sucking wind, dude. To hike 1 mile, I was dying.
Right.
I could not. And we were up there camping and we were running around, and I kept every 50 yards, I'd have to stop and just take a breather. And no joke, the other times I've been to any, whether it was Denver in Colorado or Vail, also in Colorado, which are two different very high altitudes. When I went to Vail, which was a lot closer to 10,000, 11,000 feet, I was dying. I mean, it was, I felt really bad. So I can only imagine how this trail must feel if you're not super used to changes in altitude, and if maybe the weather was not to the expectation you wanted. Now, that being said, I think when we go into the pictures, it's interesting because the way the trail was that day was not the way it was in the blog that I saw. So the blog that I saw, the trail was very foggy and misty, and it looked, almost looked like the guy said, like a trail up in the clouds. And the pictures we see, it's going to look like a very hot, it almost looks like a California day, like a Southern California day. Right. What one last series of details before we jump on is that they both had their phones with them. they may not have realized, especially being from maybe a country with a different kind of phone infrastructure. And what I mean by that is like maybe it's really easy to get a signal in the Netherlands. And maybe they kind of made the wrong assumption that like, I mean, a cell phone is a radio, but it's not a very high powered radio. They may not have realized that apparently, according to the locals, the cell phone coverage is not very good at all in those hills. And matter of fact, they said that there's only one spot of about 20 meters in size on the highest hilltop in that jungle north of Boquete where there is cell phone coverage once you have climbed up the Pianista Trail. So that might be another good reason. They said even a satellite telephone doesn't always work up there, which is amazing. So there's just too much mountains, too much stuff going on, too much stuff in the way. I mean, it almost makes me wonder if the locals, for their own purposes, if they have like real like ham radios or something, you know what I mean, like walkie-talkies, something something with a little more wattage pumping out of it to try to for emergency purposes, because it kind of sounds like if you get in trouble up there, if you don't have someone else that can like literally run down the hill for an hour to get you help, you might be in a lot worse trouble.
Right.
And that's what I found.
Right. So that's definitely those details are really interesting. Now, before we actually jump into the search, I just want to cover a few points regarding their disappearance that I also have. So basically, suspicion rose after the dog that they brought with them for this trail actually returned to Boquete that same day without the two girls. The host family, so Miriam, is said to have searched the area surrounding their home once they realized that their guests had not came back in the evening. Kris and Lisanne were said to have been scheduled with a local guide for a private walking tour the day after, so this just begs the question, why would they go on this crazy trail on their own when they already had booked a guide to walk them through that? Maybe they were thinking, man, there's nothing to do today, let's just go somewhere on our own and then we'll go with a guide tomorrow, something like that. So I think they were definitely meant to come back the next day. They went on this trail on April 1st. On April 2nd they had scheduled that tour guide, so they probably were definitely thinking about coming back home on April 1st as well. They never showed up for this appointment, so the tour guide got suspicious. He went to look for the girls at the nearby host family they stayed with, and later that day he and staff members from that language school contacted the authorities and the girls' families the next morning. So basically on April 3rd, authorities are said to have conducted an aerial search of the forest as well as a foot search with the help of local residents. Now, for just so that I don't get burned in the comments, I know that the authorities were allegedly not searching until April 5th, but I didn't really find that information, so I definitely know that someone started searching for them on April 3rd, so 3 days after their disappearance. Well, basically 2 days, 3 days into their disappearance, someone definitely started searching for them. So the local guides and the locals definitely searched. Whether or not the police searched, I read something that sort of says that the police didn't take it that seriously. They only started searching 5 days after. I know there's a whole misconception that they were like young and they were just like out partying or something like that. So let's jump into the search. So as I've said, on April 3rd, an aerial search was conducted, a foot search as well. Kris' father, Hans Kremers, has sent a message to Kris by Wednesday, so on April 2nd actually, so 1 day into their disappearance, asking if everything was okay, and she actually could contact them. Basically, he asked her to contact them, but she didn't reply to that. A co-worker of the Boquete Esquarian Center saw the girls before April 1st. He said that they were sweating, so just as you mentioned, I think you've read some of these points already. Basically, Lisanne had a cough, shortness of breath, and asthma symptoms during the trip. So that with a lot of walking in altitude, that's definitely not a good mix. The Pianista route, I think you've mentioned this fact that it was like a high altitude Trail as well. So by April 6th, actually, one of the girls' parents boarded a plane along with detectives from the Netherlands. Together, police, dog units, and the Dutch detectives searched the forests for a solid 10 days to no avail. Kris and Lisanne's parents actually offered 30 G's for any information that's in US dollars, but it didn't bring them any new information actually. Nothing was heard or seen from the girls for weeks and months actually. Then after about 10 weeks, a local native woman found Lisanne's blue lycra backpack and it was handed to the police. So I'm just gonna flip to that picture. Bro, you have anything about the backpack? Like, it was really neat and tidy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was one of the biggest comments that everybody had to make. And I think this is just frankly one of the biggest criticisms about, I'll say my specific stance on the case last time is that almost everybody universally agrees that just a nylon, which is what it's made out of. I tried to find the actual model of it, but it's pretty much a backpack made out of nylon. Nylon is interesting, but it's not it's not permanently weatherproof. And I'll tell you, like, I've actually had a chance to look at kind of similar fabrics because of just stuff going out of my house where I had things out in the sun all summer, and I was like, oh, that plastic thing, like different kinds of plastics, and I had them out in the different weather. And no joke, like even this bucket that like was fine lasted forever when it was like in my car or in my garage or like in the shade, but not out in the weather. So just having like the sunlight on it plus any kind of water or just sun by itself, like all this stuff is like super fragile. So no joke, like even stuff that was able to withstand water like for months on end this past winter when it was in direct sunlight for any long period of time, the sun is just brutal, right? So that was something I tried to research. I'm like, well, I want to play devil's advocate. Well, maybe there's like some of these things that can stand up to weather. Maybe that's how great the new fabrics are, but no.
2014 fabrics, bro. So not like super new fabrics.
Yeah, it's not even super new, but you know what I mean? Like even like just 21st century fabrics where they're like, oh, we have the new XYZ coating on it. Because it's true, like for any of these kind of things, they definitely try to, upsell you on like, oh, well, this has like this thing or this has that thing. Nah, guess what? Like just the weather is just brutal. It's too hard to make things, permanently. All things break down under ultraviolet radiation and the amazing power of water. So yeah, it's a long way of saying it seems very unrealistic, unfortunately, for those that would want to try to attribute a more accidental nature, or at least like say, oh, this was entirely, moved by natural elements. This plus some other things that we'll go into both this week and next week. Yeah, we'll definitely start to tilt it the other way. Yeah.
So basically, the woman was a local woman who actually found this backpack, and from this image we can see the contents of that backpack. I will get into that really shortly. So basically, this woman found the backpack in a rice paddy. It was allegedly stuck between a rock and a river on the bank of the river Culebara near the village of Alto Romero in a remote area 8 kilometers from the location where the girls were last seen, so quite far away from their last location. Police assumed it was drifted by the river to the spot, but the backpack was dry and everything in it was in good working order and also dry. We had like phones in there and a camera. So basically, it had been raining heavily in the prior few weeks, and the backpack did not look like it had spent weeks and weeks in a super wet, muddy jungle. In it were 2 neatly folded up bras, 2 simple pairs of sunglasses, an empty water bottle, both girls' mobile phones, so a Samsung Galaxy phone from Lisanne and an iPhone from Kris, a digital camera, a Canon PowerShot 270 HS without the lens cap, Lisanne's passport, Kris medical insurance card, and 83 American dollars. So basically, it is stated that as many as 34 different fingerprints were found. So I think that's just a police screw up right there, because they were like not really thinking about getting any DNA off of it. And I think it could have been the case that they realized that this backpack was definitely left by someone else other than the girls. So they were thinking, yeah, maybe they thought that, oh, just the locals handed in like a missing person's backpack. They didn't really think that much of it. I don't know really how that whole situation went down. So basically, shortly before June 19th, so actually 2.5 months after their disappearance, a pair of jean shorts was actually also located on top of a rock on the opposite bank of this river, actually. And it was actually located 8 walking hours away from Bouquet and several kilometers away from where Froon's backpack had been discovered. Dutch police estimated the distance between the jean shorts and the backpack to be no less than 14 hours of walking distance. So basically, I don't know how you explain that. Well, I mean, that's on the next episode, I guess. So we also have one of the shoes was found also nearby, I believe, the backpack, and it had a foot still in it. So that foot was actually later determined to be Lisanne Froon's foot. The laces were still laced tightly, and it also had a sock inside it containing the foot, which still had some skin and meat on it, actually. So for 2.5 months, still having some flesh on that bone, that's definitely interesting. Maybe the water or something like that. This shoe with a foot in it was found by a local guide and his helpers behind and almost under a tree in the vicinity of Alto Romero and away from the river. So a little bit away from the river, I guess. Forensics stated that the cut on the bone of the foot was surprisingly clean and that no blood was actually found on it. Also, no signs of cutting, hacking, gunshots, or teeth or claw markings were detected, not even when looked under the microscope. At least 33 widely scattered bones were also discovered along the same riverbank, of which most 28 of those fragments came from Lisanne's foot. So basically, we don't know where the bodies are at. We just know that there's a pretty solid Lisanne foot there, and also one half of Kris's, so Kris Kremers, the other girl's pelvic bone. So one half of the pelvic bone was also found. And actually, eventually, a rib bone from Kris was also found on August 2nd of 2014, and I have information that it was rib number 10. So rib number 10 from Kris was found. So I believe that's all the bones that we have. So a bunch of like bone fragments from Lisanne's foot and her foot itself in a shoe, as well as a pelvic bone of Kris Kremers. So at this point in the story, we can clearly state that both women have perished in that trail in April of 2014, because, I don't see anyone surviving, like without like pelvic bones or like having your foot missing, like shattered like that in the middle of the jungle, so they're dead. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the biggest questions, which kind of tee up the discussions for the second part of this, is why were those bones so scattered? Why were the bones in different states? So like why was one person's bones bleached by the sun while the other person's bones seemed to have been moist, as if they had been exposed to the elements for a much smaller period of time, like they were almost preserved? So a lot of questions. I mean, one person said in the comments that there's no animal that could have done that. I dispute that. I mean, there's for sure jaguars and things like that down there. There's lots of other animals that'll root in things, like tapirs. So I don't know that there's definitively no natural explanation. But I think it is pretty disturbing to a lot of people. Like, how could these remains have been in so many different places, right? So like, what could have done that, but yet not expose the rest of the body? Like, where is the rest of the body?
Where
And
is it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Why don't we have a head? Why don't we have an arm? Why don't we have a leg bone? We have like basically just mostly pieces of feet, like mostly pieces of someone's foot, part of a leg bone,
and
but
then
not any of like when I guess I'm thinking about
yeah.
like the humerus or something like that, the femur. Where are those
Exactly,
at?
exactly. Where are they at? Okay, bro. At this point, I think we also should jump into some of the interesting contents from that backpack. So there were two interesting contents in there: the phones and the camera. So let's dual discuss the phones because I think we're both prepared to talk about the bones a little bit. So I'm jumping to an infographic right now. I hope you can see it, and I hope everyone on watching this on
Yeah.
our YouTube channel can see it. So basically, after they found the two phones, they actually went to the logs of those phones and they found really interesting information. So we have this infographic, and I'll guess I'll just go through it and I'll ask for your reaction a little bit. So I know that this looks really confusing because the person who did it. By the way, before we keep going, let's mention that a whole bunch of this information that we are talking about was actually gathered from a super in-depth blog post. When I'm talking about in-depth blog post, this is some next level stuff. The author is Scarlett R. I don't know her last name. Let's make sure to leave the description of this blog post like in the description. I'm saying like the link, and also the pictures that we were looking from was like from like a really cool enthusiast of this case called Juan. So kudos to Juan for providing all of these assets. It made our job a lot easier today. Let's jump into the phones, bro. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at what we can see, and I will bring my mouse out so that I could like sort of definitely explain this a little bit better. So this is Kris's iPhone. This is Lisanne's Samsung. These are the days where certain activity was made, and these are the other actions on the same day. So we could look at it as a Excel spreadsheet, pretty much. You know what I'm saying, like a table, because these rows are like definitely connected with each other. So basically, we could go flip through the days. So on the first day, I believe, on April 1st, as we can see, there were actually per day, as we can see, two attempts per day to contact the authorities and things like that to ask for help. So actually at 16:39, the first attempt was made. As we can see, the phone number was 112. It was attempted basically to call from Kris's iPhone. It didn't go through because there was no cell phone reception. So as we can see, 12 minutes later, Lisanne's Samsung actually also made a 112 attempt. It didn't work, and apparently they didn't use those phones on the first day as well. So from that, we're getting that shortly after the last pictures they took, which were like cool pictures of them having fun on the trail, hours later, they're already calling the authorities for help. We know that something has not happened. As we can see, other actions, April 1st, 13:55 a.m. So basically, what's the difference on this? I believe like 3 hours? Almost 3 hours. So almost 3 hours after the last normal photo, they're calling the cops for help, you know what I'm saying? April 2nd, I will let you chime in real quick. April 2nd, we have Kris's phone attempting to call. Actually, firstly, we had Lisanne's at 6:58 attempt to call the authorities, and actually Kris's phone was attempting to call the authorities at 8:14. We also have on the same day two attempts from Lisanne's Samsung at almost 11 a.m. and almost at 14 p.m. But now they're also using the 911 as well. So I assume they're attempting to call the 911 and 112. So at that point, they probably were still thinking right, and they were like, maybe 911, we should dial 911 and things like that. So For the first 2 days, do you find anything suspicious before we jump into the next few days?
No, I mean, I think it definitely bears out what you're saying, that, like stuff went wrong real fast. And unfortunately, it really bears out what I mentioned before about the cell phone coverage issues, that like it's almost futile to try to connect. I think it's worth highlighting to anyone that's listening at this point, and wondering why we're going on about the phone so much, that this is one of the most critical clues, because it really, I think, gives a sense about where things went wrong. But who is using the phones is also important to think about as we talk about this, because conceivably more than just the both of them could be accessing the phones at any given moment. But it's also important to think about, as you kind of think about theories for the next episode, them having access to the phones potentially, or someone dialing the phones, kind of gives a sense for what the potential scenarios are.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Definitely, bro. That definitely makes sense. Let's jump to the third day of their disappearance. We have at 9:33 a.m. Kris' phone is attempting to call 911. We have all of a sudden Lisanne's Samsung phone only is checking for signals at almost 2 p.m. on the third day, as well as 4:19 p.m. and also at 4 p.m. Kris as well also checked for the signal. So on the third day of the disappearance, they're already only checking for the signal. Actually, on the fourth day of their disappearance, April 4th, actually I can see that Lisanne's Samsung phone is no longer being used. So this is an indication to me that the battery is really low on Lisanne's Samsung on day 4. On day 4, nothing suspicious happens. Kris's phone checks for the signal twice, couldn't find any signal. Nothing else happens. Then we can see on April 5th, and actually we can see that on April 5th, guides start voluntarily searching around Boquete. So for everyone who's watching this on our YouTube channel, you could definitely pay attention to the other actions as well. I will not go through them as much as I actually go through the actual phone logs. So day 5th, we actually have, let's start off with Lisanne's Samsung phone, the one that we already suspect is low on battery. It actually dies. It checks for signal at 4:50 a.m. really early in the morning, and at 5 a.m. switched on empty. It pretty much dies at that point and is never used again. We also have later on day 5 of their disappearance, we have 2 check signals basically from Kris's iPhone around midday. That's it. Now this is where the real interesting stuff is at. This is where it's at right now, my guy. Look at day 6. This is where things get really interesting. Day 6, right? So Lisanne's Samsung is dead at that point, so she can't use the phone. But look at this. Day 6, Kris's iPhone checks for signal, no pin, twice. So that means the pin code is entered incorrectly. I know that we won't get into theories on this episode, but I already will say that I have high suspicions that Kris is dead at day 6. She's dead. And actually, Lisanne is trying to access Kris's phone because her phone has died the previous day. So I believe that Kris has passed away and Lisanne can't get into the phone. Well, I will definitely leave it for the next episode and we will talk about all of this. Definitely.
One more thing I can add is with this. Why don't I go ahead and I'll take what you said and I'll abstract it further to say, not the owner of the phone, so whoever that is. There is something where apparently that model of iPhone is the iPhone, right? That there was some kind of weird hack that you could find on YouTube at the time that you could potentially bypass the PIN. So just an alternative thing to float out there for next week is if somebody had access to the phone and was somewhere where they either knew of the hack or could look it up, that might also be what's going on here.
Definitely,
Just a
bro.
little bit of a teaser.
I'm actually
Yeah.
I'm actually watching that same video with the hack. We'll definitely show it on the next week. I actually found it immediately, and I definitely know what you're talking about. Last thing here to mention is that actually the pin codes not being entered is really interesting because those iPhones back in 2014 they had an option to call for help, to make emergency phone calls without actually opening the phone, without actually entering the pin. There's like a side button that you could press, emergency phone call. It's super hard to miss. Like I've seen videos, like you can't miss it. So don't really know why she was entering the pin code. I don't think she was entering, whoever was entering the pin codes at that point, because both of them could be dead at that point. We don't know who's using the phones, right? I think what happened is really unclear. I think whoever was using the phones was not trying to open up the phones with the pin codes with intentions of calling the authorities. They were just trying to see the contents of it. So it could definitely be that they're both dead at that point and someone else, you know what I mean, someone else is trying to open that phone. But also we have a really interesting detail. So basically from 7th to 10th of April we have 77 more attempts. Now, I will say these 77 attempts are unclear. The information is definitely shaky. What I've looked into it, 77 attempts are definitely shaky, man. We also have on April 8th. So let's jump into it. So between 7th to 10th, 77 attempts to unlock the phone. April 8th. 99 nighttime photos. So this is where we are gonna be jumping to the photos really quickly.
Yeah, I'll just sorry to interrupt, just to stick one thing in here, because from my research there was a little bit of controversy about this, that apparently, and this is, once again, it's really hard to unravel what's going on, because apparently the parents went on a show and someone made a statement about the 77 attempts number, and it's become controversial because they're not sure if it was 77 attempts to call for help, 77 attempts to access the phone, or 77 attempts for it to make a handshake. By handshake I mean the phone making a connection to the tower. So it's interesting. So I know somebody is going to jump into the comments and yell at us about that's what they read. So let's acknowledge it here, is that there's a little bit, because there's been so much public pronouncement about this, and the parents have gone on a show, and what happened was this talk show host basically made like this statement in front of the parents, and they didn't say no, and because of that, it's like kind of taken as gospel now. So I just want to make sure that people do understand, that we understand that we're kind of at the mercy of what the official pronouncements are. So it could be that it wasn't 77 attempts to access the phone so much as it was 77 attempts for the phone to do something.
Definitely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, bro. That's actually really good that you clarify that, and we don't actually get any hate comments. So basically what I wanted to say, that 90 photos were actually taken in between those 77 attempts, which is pretty interesting to me. Also on April 11th, there's actually another check signal. So, I just really want to stamp this point out, and then I promise, guys, we're definitely moving to the pictures now. From 7th to 10th of April, 77 attempts to do something with the phone. In between those attempts, 90 photos, right, in the morning of really morning hours of April 8th. And then April 11th, 2 check signals on 12 p.m. pretty much. It's switched off. It's switched off after 1 hour and 5 minutes. So basically that's it. The last piece of information regarding someone's activities, because we don't know who was using those phones at that time. Someone's activities ends at April 11th, and I'm just gonna jump back to the photos. I think we can discuss the photos. So bro, I'll just jump to the photos. You could give us, you could start off with the photos if you have some cool information regarding them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously the most controversial part of it is that there's a specific discrepancy we're going to mention that's in here. But I think the most important thing about the photos is from what we know about, or what we think we know about the trip. So, they look like they're in good spirits for this first, let's call it the first 2 hours of the trip, which is, leading up to the ascent. And it's also important to note that, I mean, from my perspective, it looks hot. So, like, it doesn't look, they're from a pretty cool climate. Um, and, they may have seen some of the websites or other travel blogs where they were expecting maybe like a foggy, cloudy day. And I would say if that was what kind of day they were going into, well, that would have been a pretty, maybe one bottle of water would have worked. I don't know. I'm pretty pessimistic about that. Like, I'm a little bit shocked that, these people really, these two, relatively intelligent and well-traveled women would think that one bottle of water would be good for a 4 or 5 hour rigorous hike up and down a mountain. But regardless, that's what they took. And maybe that would have been passable. I don't think they would have been feeling, I don't think they would have been feeling great after that if it had been cloudy. But like, if you look at this, like, just like, so I'm an amateur photographer, in my, one of my hobbies, like the light levels here, like, yeah, they look like they're getting into the early afternoon, but they're still like, it still looks like the sun's pretty high over them.
Yeah.
And that looks like a hot day. Like I think that's one thing I noticed about these photos is the more it goes, the less smiles I see. And some people notice that some of the photos when they get to the top of the mountain, at which point they actually unfortunately continued on past that point that I said where you're supposed to turn back into the Continental Divide, which gets into a whole other set of territory, which maybe we'll save the locals and all that for next week. But yeah, it was interesting because someone remarked that at one point there's a bunch of photos taken at the top of the mountain, and they're like, well, the timestamps show that these are all like only a few seconds apart. So either the clock's wrong, or they were really like trying to rush out some of these photos, which is interesting because that makes me think that, like, they did feel some kind of time pressure and realize that, like, for whatever reason, they needed to expedite this hike.
Okay, bro. Yo, that's really good information. I didn't even realize that that's where the the camera timestamps could be potentially off. And why I stopped at this picture in this slideshow, because I believe, well, we will certainly find out shortly, that this is the last normal picture that they took. It's of Kris Kremers standing over like a little river. Like, it's definitely not a river. I assume this river definitely. Oh, I've read somewhere that this place actually, where we can see like that little water, like flowing there, it actually gets knee-deep mud levels during like certain seasons. So things are always changing in the jungle as well. Let's jump into it. So, actually. So we have some information. Okay, so yeah, pardon me, that was definitely not the last normal picture. I believe this could be the last normal picture. Well, these are definitely like the beginnings of the last normal pictures. And I will say to you this, man, this doesn't look like a casual tourist friendly trail, if you know what I mean. This doesn't look like that anymore at all. This looks dangerous. This looks like somewhere that you like. I would definitely say, if you don't have a guide, probably you should turn back. Like, this looks like something from The Lost, that episode, like the TV show, and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty much. I believe this is the last picture. So we're looking at the picture, basically looking at the trail right now. Dude, how easy it would be to sprain your ankle here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, and did they? That's the one thing I should have looked at their footwear a little better. But I mean, do they even have like anything like a hiking boot where it has like ankle stabilization? I mean, what are they wearing?
Boots. They are wearing boots, bro. Both Lisanne's foot was found in a boot, and as we can see, Kris Kremers is wearing boots as well. They were actually coincidentally looked into for some reason a little bit into these boots. They were like from a Netherlands maker of the boots, and they were apparently good quality boots, not usually seen in Panama. Like they were like really good quality boots. So the boots, they had like good boots, and let's jump into it. So yeah, pretty much this is the first picture. The next picture, bro. So I don't know, man, this is the picture 8 days later. So let's bring bro, one more thing. We almost forgot. So since this is a digital camera, it was tracking pictures, right? So every picture had a name. I believe this picture had a name called image 508, and this image is 510. So, when we do the math real quick, we realize that 508, 510, where's 509? Well, actually 509, the picture that bridges these two things, is missing. It was deleted. So basically there's a picture that bridges these two pictures, right? And it's gone, and it's said to have been deleted. But the interesting fact is that the way it's been deleted, it apparently could not be completely wiped out of the phone, of the camera, I'm sorry, but the only way to completely eradicate it is by connecting the camera to a computer and deleting it through certain software. So I definitely don't see that happening, but I'm definitely not super 100% sure that that's the case for the pictures. And it's definitely interesting because, bro, this 509 picture, it could definitely, like give us a whole bunch of information. I don't know, you want to add anything about picture 509?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's almost like the biggest thing everybody sees is on, whether in the comments or on the blogs or the articles or the the dedicated subreddit that there is to it, is that everyone's kind of wondering like okay, like this seems to be a big glaring pointing finger that something has happened, some kind of intersection has happened. And it can mean a lot of things, but it could either, I guess we'll explore later what it really might mean, but it seems to point to some sort of outside access to the phone that has distorted
camera.
Our view of the whole evidence. Sorry, the camera. Sorry, that has distorted our view of the evidence. Yeah,
I mean, definitely. And for that, you being the camera expert on this show, I will definitely, and pictures taking expert as well, like a photograph, as you mentioned before. Let's jump into the pictures. Maybe you can tell us what these two women allegedly took 8 days into their disappearance. First of all, how do you even stay alive 8 days into the jungle? I think I mentioned this on episode 56, but I strongly believe I would die within like 5 days or 4 days. You know what I'm saying? I've definitely not stay alive for 11 days because apparently the phones were still active 11 days into the disappearance. I don't know how to explain all of that. So this is the first picture. It's a picture. It's really hard to tell if the person is looking into the distance, if the person is looking into an upward direction from a ditch, or vice versa, if someone is looking down a ditch. What do you think is the angle here?
Yeah, this was, I think, one of those mysterious things where, to me, it looked like it was the bottom of an embankment looking up.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So
that was my perspective. But it's funny because it's like one of those magic pictures or something where, to someone else, it could be the opposite, where it looks like you're looking down into a chasm. But for me, it looks like the shape of dirt, like that's been shaped kind of like oddly.
Yeah, I mean, the next
water. Yeah,
definitely. The next picture is of, I believe, some candy wrappers, something like that. So we're right now showing the pictures that actually were of something, because we'll flip to the pictures shortly, but most of these 90 nighttime pictures actually didn't show anything. We're just like, you know what I'm saying, we're just showing like the darkness of the night, because they were taken between 1 and 4 a.m. in the morning of April 8th, so basically on the 8th day of the disappearance. I just can't stress these facts enough. This one was also really famous because some people actually, and I think I will put an overlay somewhere in post production or something like that. Some people actually made this picture a lot lighter, and they actually on the right hand side, I don't know if you remember, but there seems to be like shapes, and actually even in this picture right now, we could pretty much see like some sort of like shapes on the right side that pretty much to some people indicate that there's a person there, but I don't buy it, you know what I'm saying? But maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to look at it, to me, it just looks like more of the same. I mean, the almost the theme of these photos is really disturbing, right? Because they're so much different.
Yeah.
And then when we have the context of what was going on in the phones during the same period, like it really makes you wonder, like who is, what state is this person in when they're taking them, and what was even their point? Like, were they even trying to take a picture of something? Were they trying to take a diary of what was going on around there, or
Could
were they just trying to
this
use the flashlight,
could this
the flash of
be
it?
could this be a person encountering a camera for the first time taking
Oh yeah,
pictures? So
yeah.
bro, this is for the next episode. We also have, yes, we had that picture right here. I think we will now flip through the pictures. As you can see, most of these pictures have not been publicly released. They have only been like shown on, I believe, the Dutch TV shows. So that's why Juan really came through. He's the real MVP in this case for compiling everything here. So thanks a lot, Juan. And yeah, so basically he's pretty much taking like pictures off of those TV shows and things like that. Yeah. So basically these are like the types of pictures, like as you can see, like the majority of the pictures, it looks like I think some of these pictures could have made it to our previous episode, like the ghost orb pictures, you know what I'm saying? Because this looks like some ghost stuff right here, basically showing the darkness. We do see some like it's really hard to tell where they're at, you know. This is why these pictures are so mysterious. Like we don't really know if this is where this is at. Like we can see like some rocks here. I know that this podcast is really weird for people listening to this on the podcast apps. So bro, everyone who's listening to this, like not on our YouTube channel, I really apologize, but it's just we just had to do it the case like this. So yeah, these are some more potential embankment pictures. We see a whole bunch of these like pictures with like, by the way, what do you think that is that like rain? Do those look like rain droplets to you, or does it look like dust particles? Because I'm sort of leaning towards rain particles, and that it was actually raining. So how, like, if it was raining, I'll let you add your information real soon. But like, let's imagine it was raining. Then how do you explain the camera still working, and how do you explain like everyone's stuff being found dry and neatly folded and things like that?
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, because yeah, I mean, it's not like smartphones, especially back then, are known for being too weatherproof. They could be under a tree or something, so maybe that's why. Or like if you're shaking a tree, you're shaking dew off of it. It could be it's not. I mean, yeah. I mean, to answer your original question, if it was dust or rain, I think it's rain.
Yeah,
It doesn't look like, because it's like where's the dust in the other photos, right?
exactly.
If that was dust, so like just to stay consistent, it looks like maybe they had a little bit of stuff. I mean, the other thing is I know just from unfortunate experience, sometimes stuff can get wet and then come back from it. Like so, even like
Yeah.
you can have a mobile phone or a tablet, or or in my case, a radio scanner that fell into a bath, and then later on when it dries out, like just by luck, everything's working again.
You
They seem
know,
to make stuff robust sometimes.
I just
Yeah.
had a quick brainstorm idea. I don't know if this works out at the end. Maybe there's some flaw in this theory, and I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong. Could it be in potentially a situation where they're just lying, waiting for help on April 8th? So 8 days into their disappearance, it was just really like hard to believe that they're still alive at that point. And it started raining but they were out in the open and it was really dark, so they were using the flashlight to find cover from the rain, so they were just like flashing, like, does that make any sense?
Yeah, that works I keep on thinking, like, I hate to bring it up, but when you think of like all the people that survived like death camps and concentration camps and things like that around the world, sometimes it's kind of amazing like how long somebody can go without food or water. So yeah, maybe it's conceivably they were just super low energy at this point and definitely not used to not eating. But
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a good clue.
Bro, like if I don't eat anything for like one day, I would already feel fatigued. So 8 days?
I think I mentioned to you I lost like around 30 pounds doing intermittent fasting. So like during the day I basically don't eat, and like you said, all I do is drink coffee, and like by the time, let's say, it gets to like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, like my brain doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can't, like I'm trying to, even doing research for the shows, I'm trying to like hold my concentration, and it's like you're just out of gas. And then no joke, like as soon as I eat dinner, I'm like, oh, all this energy. Oh, let's do this, read that, do this, do that. Like I get so much done after dinner sometimes just from like that. So yeah, I can't even imagine how people, do that like for days on end.
Yeah. Let's flip through the other pictures because one really crazy picture is still coming up, guys. As you can see from most of these pictures, right, it definitely seems like it's raining and they're like I don't know, taking pictures of the rain for some reason. How do you explain like these red flashes? Is this like from when you take a picture of something like really nearby and the flash just sort of like shoots back at you or something like that? How do you explain these like explosions?
Yeah, it's really weird because it could even be daylight and just there's like a branch or something in the way. I mean, it's whatever it is, it's definitely emblematic of overexposure.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But yeah, some of those things, yeah, I mean, to your point, it could be like even somebody's arm that's super near the flash. So the flash goes off and like it's just totally out of focus and overexposed.
Gotcha, man. Gotcha. Let's go. Some more pictures. I'm trying to flip to those crazy pictures. There's at least 2 crazy pictures that I would still like to show on the show today. Oh wait, some of these are logging. So as you can see, these pictures all of a sudden turn a lot darker. Like what does this mean? Does this mean that they stop using the flash at some point? I don't know, man. Like these look really dark, These are like real dark. Oh wait. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one, bro. Like we definitely have to still talk about this one during the show. What do you think about this one, man?
Yeah, this is another one of those like if there's like a top 3 or a top 5 pieces of evidence, people use this is such a like a Rorschach blob of what people project into it. So it's somebody's hair.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, let's describe the picture for everyone who's listening to this.
So anyone who's listening, it's a picture of somebody's hair. The hair looks, I would say, definitely either blonde or because, like pictures can change color.
It's Kris's, I believe.
Yeah, it looks a lot like Kris's hair. Like it looks like just a ginger blonde hair from up close. And what's not clear is like where's the person's head or face? Like what you can't tell is whether the face is towards you and the hair is over her face or whether you're looking at the back of her head. But it's for sure like a big mass of like what looks like fairly clean, tangled, long Caucasian hair, right? Like
exactly.
like hair, like very light colored hair of somebody that is from Europe, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Definitely looks like Kris Kremers' hair. It looks like, to me, it always seemed like it was taken from above. You know what I'm saying? Like if you would take a picture from someone from like above, and you would just see like the top of the head, but you wouldn't see like the face. So I think this is like the type of picture. I don't know what is the point of taking a picture of Kris Kremers' top of the head. 8 days into the disappearance. Let's jump through some more pictures. Oh yeah, so this is like the last picture. So basically, you see that you see that stuff scattered around, like on the rock, a little bit. So basically, we're looking at a picture that is pretty much the same as all the other nighttime crazy pictures that don't actually show anything. But on the bottom, we can see some paper wrappings. I believe there's a link to this. Like, people have figured out where this paper is coming from. It's potentially from one of the booklets that they had with them or something like that, but or some people stated it was toilet paper. I don't really know if they had any with them, so don't really 100% know what's the contents of these paper like cut up paper pieces are, but like yeah, definitely looks like something scattered around. Some people were saying that this is like they potentially made a sign, like an SOS sign. I really don't know how that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I have to, if I was going to dig in with my devil's advocate thing, which some people get mad at me for, I would resist, for anyone that's watching the show right now. Yeah, like, for sure consider the theories. I mean, who knows? There's more there's more strange stuff that happens that's true than you would think. But sometimes people, I feel like it is almost like that Rorschach, test where you put a blob out there and people see like butterflies or whatever else into it. Like, sometimes I think people read a little bit too much into it, where sometimes, I mean, to me, these photos so far look very scattered and not very organized in terms of composition. So, like, sometimes I think people read like secret messages in there and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's really the right interpretation. Maybe it's worth talking about next week for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This is a close-up picture. I don't really know what to make of these pictures, man. Let's see. Okay, so that's it. We're right now jumping towards I believe the diaries that they kept. So basically, I think we should definitely also link this Google Photos file with everyone, so that that was compiled by Juan. So basically, everyone who wants to view that, they could definitely do that from going to our like comment section, going to our description. I think we'll leave all of that information right there. So yeah, pretty much. Right now, I'm thinking. I just want to quickly jump through the script. Did we miss anything? Because as we've said, like, the theories are coming up next week. Because as I've said, like, I personally have really interesting theories that I didn't have on episode number 56. So all of that coming up next week for you guys. But in terms of the details, have we missed anything?
No, I mean, I feel like we've definitely covered a lot. I mean, this case is so deep. I mean, this is almost like the JFK assassination of like disappearances in terms of, it's like right in front of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, just like JFK, it seems like there's no mystery, except there's just so much that goes on, and there's even now so much new stuff we learn. But yeah, I mean, this case, people are just super obsessed with it, and I don't blame them. And I think in a lot of ways it starts to defy easy explanation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also so crazy, because to have people that you can't find all of, and to have all these like tantalizing clues and pictures, and you have like this like in this age of social media. Yeah, I mean even like, it's almost like they Instagrammed and Facebook Lived their whole trip up to like their disappearance in a way, right? Even though some of that stuff didn't exist yet, but or at least not in the present day sense. But yeah, but here we are. We still don't know a lot of what happened. So yeah, it's like, it's just such a deep topic that actually it's worth pointing out to anybody that watches this. Jump into the comments if you think we missed something, or there's something you'd really like us to focus on when we go over your theories. Let us know, just so that we can make sure to get it into next episode if we don't get it in here.
Definitely, guys. Yeah, pretty much. I think we will be wrapping up. Actually, we didn't even take that long to do the details, like a little bit over an hour. So I'm really happy with the results. Well, it's pretty much around our usual cutoff point. So yeah, pretty much as Glenn mentioned, next week we'll be jumping into this case. I hope we sort of intrigued you enough to join us again on the next weekend. And yeah, if you guys, since we're coming back literally next week with this same case, if you leave something in the comments over this week, we'll be probably showing you guys or like reacting to what you've said next week. So if you want us to talk about something regarding this case, definitely jump on the comment section of our YouTube page, or like message me on Instagram or anything like that, and yeah, we could definitely do it. So thanks for joining us today, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast, and as always, we will catch you on the next week's show. And for now, just stay safe and peace out.